first of all, just want to welcome you to the show and say thank you very much for giving us some time, mate. Been looking forward to chatting to you.
No problem, thanks for having me.
Obviously, Aaron, you've got quite a unique and an inspiring story for fighters. I mean, reading through your story and stuff like that, it's certainly unique. So I kind of want to just go back to the start with you, just to go through everything with you. So you were born with cystic fibrosis, is that correct?
Yeah, I was born with cystic fibrosis.
And what I wanted to know about that is just because obviously then you've chosen to go down the route of a professional sportsman. I wanted to know how that affects you and how you deal with that when you're competing in sports and training. I just really wanted to get a bit of an insight on that.
I think it's like not knowing any different from when I was brought up. Mm-hmm. Like my dad competed in professional sports. He played rugby. Yep. So I think like looking after your body and your health was important from a young age. And I almost used it as a treatment for cystic fibrosis. So growing up, like it was recommended back then, they had a different view on exercise to they do now. We were told not to do exercise because your lungs would struggle. Be careful, like getting him out of breath, like make sure he doesn't go out in the cold and stuff. But my mum and dad always like brought me up the complete opposite. Like my dad was always like, oh, you know, you're going to play this sport, get out. And like growing up as a kid, I didn't know anything different. And then I would just like look into like health and nutrition because he'd always be talking to me about it. Make sure you're looking after your body, make sure you're fueling your training sessions properly. And then as obviously I got older and started learning more about health and fitness, and like I went to university and did a degree in sport coaching, I would look into it and start like looking after my body in a way. I'd try and make myself not overtrain and make sure I was putting the right things in, the right fuel, getting sleep and rest. And just learning through experience really on how my body, how I could look after it in the best possible way, I'm guessing, as an individual.
Yeah, and is it then almost that, so you were saying about the advice you used to give out there, obviously in terms of exercising in the cold, have you noticed, is that something that's changed? I mean, most medicine does change over time, but has that changed now over time? I'm assuming they've done more research and they know more about
it's trained now. Like if you go to like a CF hospital, one of the first things they do every day is they take you in the gym. They get you on the running machine. They have like small gyms in the CF clinics there. You know, when you go for your CF checkups, they're like, oh, how much exercise are you doing? Are you making sure you're doing this? What foods are you eating? It's pretty much growing in that way, whereas you might go and see your GP for a problem and they're not asking you what you're eating or how much are you exercising. But with the cystic fibrosis clinics, it's something that's grown through time. And obviously with cystic fibrosis being a lung condition, it's exercise is massive for the lungs. You know, it's training that muscle to become stronger and help fight infections and help the lungs keep breathing. So it's something that's grown over time. And I think I had a head start in that way. And I'm seeing like a lot of people now who are healthy with cystic fibrosis and around my age, they're doing things to do with strength and conditioning, personal training. There's one guy called Josh Llewellyn who's doing like ultra marathons and stuff. So I think it's something that's growing and catching up. And I think we're quite fortunate that now they're placing a lot of emphasis on exercise and what you eat.
Yeah, and with you having that approach for your kid in terms of being involved in sports, when you're going to cystic fibrosis clinics, are they looking at you and what you're doing and asking you questions, obviously, about your lifestyle? Was that something that happened as you were growing up?
Yeah, obviously they don't always agree with mixed martial arts, but they're always asking questions. And I think because you're there every 2 to 6 weeks, before COVID, you were going for checkups every 2 to 6 weeks. They get to know you all on a personal level, and you get to know that team well. And I think because you're there so often, it's one of them where they know everyone, who they are, and like the type of people they are. They become almost your friends in a way, and it's part of like your coaching team. For example, with your mixed martial arts, you've got like your coaches, your MMA coaches, your wrestling coaches, your strength and conditioning, your nutrition. They're like part of my team as well, who I can go to for checkups, for advice in certain situations as well. And I think they also asking me about stuff I do to like keep me healthy. And I also have a lot of interaction with parents who've got newborns with CF, and I've done a few talks for people like that. I think we have like quite a strong community, the cystic fibrosis community, and treatments are getting better now as well.
And that must be a good thing for you as well, that you have parents reaching out to you for advice and with their children. That must be a good thing, that you can pass on the experience you've had with living with it and how it can benefit them and their kids growing up.
Yeah, it's something like when I went into mixed martial arts, because when I was playing football as a kid, I didn't want to tell anyone I had CF. I wanted to be like treated normally, like I didn't want anyone feeling sorry for me or anything, or picking me or not picking me because of it. But when I went into mixed martial arts, which is based on results and it's under my control, I wanted to use mixed martial arts to like promote CF and promote positivity within that environment and like give people hope in a way. So when I speak to parents, I always try and put a positive outlook, because I remember like my mum used to say to me, you know, when I was diagnosed, she was given a booklet. Like they took her in the room and they said like, oh, your son's got cystic fibrosis. Do you know what that is? And my parents were like, no. And they're like, here's a booklet. And the booklet was like, his average life expectancy is going to be 16. He's not going to be in school much. He's going to be out of school sick. He's not going to be able to exercise. And they said like, it took them like a couple of weeks to go home. And then one day my dad like ripped up the booklet and just threw it in the bin. And was like, that's not going to be his life. And I want to give parents that positive story that they can make those decisions and have a bit of hope when they have a kid with cystic fibrosis when it's born.
That's brilliant. And then I've got to ask you, obviously you spoke about playing football there and your dad been involved in sports and rugby and stuff like that. Tell us a wee bit about what made you switch into MMA. Was there something that particularly got you into an MMA gym, or was there a single martial art that got you then involved in mixed martial arts? Yeah,
well, I was when I was getting scholarships, so when you're 16 and before you get a youth team contract at the professional club I was at, you would go live there in college and spend full time there, and they didn't want to take a risk because of my cystic fibrosis. So they didn't end up offering me a youth team contract, and I ended up moving to my local club, but it was part-time at Wrexham because they'd already give out all their contracts by the time it had happened. So I was there 3 days a week, in college the other 2. And my uncle Julian, he used to go to Eric Poulsen CSW every summer and train with him for like 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. And then when he would come back, he started taking a class for charity for cystic fibrosis. So I just started going to that once a week. All the funds would go to cystic fibrosis, and then once a week become twice a week. And then I was asking like, oh, can we do another one? It become like 3 times a week, 4 times. And I was like, oh, can we go and do an amateur fight? And then it just took off from there. I just fell in love with the sport. I also fell in love with like how it was more down to me and how I performed and how I looked after myself. And like, I like the discipline of it all and the hard work and that, like the competitiveness, and there was nowhere to hide. because sometimes, like playing a team sport, you got to rely on the other 10 people, or you got to rely on someone to pick it. And just fell in love with it that way, really, and then just started training full time from there.
And I've got to ask, how were the parents when you told them that this was the route you wanted to go down?
I think, like, me dad started taking me, so he would come and train with me, so he was okay. But then I get the usual mum reaction of no, what you doing? What the hell? My mum used to call it street fighting as well. Like, like the school teachers would like ring up, "Oh, is Aaron there? Oh, he's at street fighting," and they were like, "What, street fighting?" And I had to go in the next day and explain, "No, it's mixed martial arts, all of age. Don't worry about it. Mum just doesn't know what it is." So like the general mum reaction, and then she obviously missed my first fight, and then she was like, "I'm never missing it again. I'd rather be there." And then I remember her first fight. I looked at her in the crowd and she's crying, and I'm like, "It's not even started yet, woman."
So, James, you must have noticed that over the years, having fighters and kids starting out mixed martial arts. Do you always find it's maybe the mother that reacts more than the father?
My dad was the same. He was cool with it, but he had trained when we were kids. I think my mum came to my first kickboxing fight, and my little sister actually fought kickboxing on the same show. So she never made it to my fight. I think I was on near the end, but my sister was fighting an English girl, and my mum got escorted out for trying to storm the ring. Like she was up on the fucking ring apron, and my coach is like, "James, you'll have to go." I'm through the back trying to warm up, and my coach is like, "They're chucking your mom, they're chucking your mother out, they're chucking your mum out." And I was like, "It's probably for the best." Okay. But she never went back, man. But she was similar to Aaron's mum. She was telling everybody, even when I was in MMA and stuff, she's like, "James has got a karate fight at the weekend. He's got a karate match." And I'm like, "Fucking, it's no karate anymore."
No, it's funny, man. And Aaron, how many, obviously going through your record and everything, how many amateur fights did you actually have?
I actually had 16. Mm-hmm. Used to have those ones where you'd have like 4 on one day.
Yeah.
When I started off, so like I had a few of them, and then I started like when MMA started growing, it went from like C class to B class to A class. I think I ended up with like 8 A class fights, but it was still growing now. Like I remember my last fight at amateur, I weighed in at 60 kilograms, fighting at 66, because there was no one left. There was no one left to fight. Back then, whereas the amateur scene's much bigger now, and I definitely think it's a much better time for the sport as it grows. But yeah, it got to the point where there was no one left to fight after 16 amateur fights. I was like fighting people 6 kilograms heavier than me.
Yeah, the sport's definitely growing in the UK. It seems to, obviously at the moment we don't really know what's happening, because there's unfortunately this is the great MMA drought, obviously, with the current situation. But for you, obviously, everything was going well in your career. You were on I believe it was a 3-fight win streak at the point when you was it leading up to the Daniel Missing fight when you started feeling unwell. Can you tell us a wee bit about that? What was happening leading up to that fight?
It was a big fight because it was a rematch. And the first fight, he stopped me in the first round, and there was like a lot of talk. He said a few things about cystic fibrosis and if he was going to end my career and stuff. So I just started that, like, having pains at the time in my back. And stomach and testicle, and I just thought maybe it was stress. And I'd have it for like 3 or 4 days. It would go. I remember I went boxing one day. Carl Prince took me boxing to Bolton, and I did a few rounds. And I remember having to stop in the car on the way home. And I rang him up and I was like, "Did I take a body shot?" And he was like, "No, you didn't." And I was like, "I'm struggling to drive home here." And then a couple of days later, it was all right. Like, just carry on training. And I went, actually, one day it was really bad. So I went to A&E. They did like a a test. They were like, no, you're fine, go away, take these antibiotics. But I was like, oh, I'm 2 weeks out for a fight, I'm not going to take these antibiotics. So I ended up getting through to the fight, and then I had like the pains fight week and stuff. And then obviously got the fight out the way. And then after I went for another checkup to A&E, and they again thought the same thing, but the guy did an infection. He was like, you haven't got a water infection, what we thought last time. He was like, give it a few days. And then I went to see my GP, and that's when I started, got diagnosed with cancer, and just went through the cancer journey from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's people have nightmares about this, but when you hear that, obviously you're a young, healthy man. When you hear that news, how difficult is that to hear?
I think it, like I've spoke to people now, and like I have quite a few contacts with people who have cancer now, and like try and help them through their journey. And I do think it is one of the toughest things that you can be told is you've got cancer. At first you're like, oh, have I? Maybe a bit in denial, and it's hard to like sink in, and you're going through things in your head. Because like I remember, like you said now, I thought I was fit, I was healthy. My nana had been going through her cancer journey, and I was like reading up on it. And like I remember, I was reading a book called How Not to Die. And that was like how to avoid cancer. And I remember I was like, I don't do that. So it's one of them things, and it's tough to take. And I think I had like almost a little advantage in a way in that I'd gone through cystic fibrosis, and I had like a little bit of preparation of going through things like this, and I was like, knew I was going to like fight as hard as I could and do everything I can to try and be. But you know, it's a journey for yourself, and like one of the hardest things was having to tell me mum, because her mum had been going through it at the time, and we ended up losing me nana to cancer, and I think it took me like 2-3 weeks to end up telling her, but. It's obviously something that you're a bit in denial about, and then like when I accepted it, I was like, right, I'm going to fight this as best as I can, just like I've fought everything else, and go through it that way.
Yeah, it's almost then like putting that fighter's mindset on that. Right, it's time to go to town with this and do what I can. And in terms of
that's
sorry, on you go on.
Yeah, no, that was exactly what I thought. It was like, I remember like writing stuff down and just being like, everything I've gone through up to this point is to get me through this. I remember like getting told like you wouldn't fight again, getting told like by some doctors I need to prepare me will for me family and stuff like that. And I just remember like, right, just bite down on your gum shield, go forward, and let's fight this as hard as possible.
And in terms of treatments and stuff going forward, initially you didn't take chemo at first. Is that correct? You wanted to try and see if you could beat it naturally at first.
Yeah, like when I went to the hospital, and they were telling me about like the side effects of chemotherapy and everything it would do like to my body and my lungs especially. And like I was in the mindset of I've done everything I can to like try and keep myself healthy for this long and look after my body through training, through nutrition. I didn't want chemo to just come and wreck it. So I was like in that thought where I was going to beat it like I beat everything else. I started looking into everything, trying everything, infrared saunas, CBD. I even like tried garlic oil paste. I was trying to do everything I could to beat it naturally without having to go through chemotherapy. And I remember one day I'd been training, and I come home and I was having my breakfast and my lunch in the garden, and I was lying there with my top off. It was sunny, and there was just a big lump sticking out of my stomach. And my mum got upset, and she like seen it, and she like rung me dad, and my dad come round. He was like, "You're gonna have to go and get that checked out." And I went, and the cancer was spreading, and I had a big mass in the stomach. And I remember them like me cystic fibrosis nurse it was, who come to see me, and she said to me, basically, whatever you do, we'll support you. If you decide to keep not having chemo, we'll support you with end of the life of care, but you could have up to 6 months left. She said, if you go through chemo, we'll support you, and we'll do whatever we can to try and get your lung function back as possible, and make sure, you know, you have the best life after it as possible. And I think that's when, like, again, I decided, right, I'm gonna like, my mum, she was like, you know, please, Aaron, you've got to try and fight this. So I was like, I'm gonna have chemo and do again whatever I can to come out the other end of it.
Yeah, and then when you make that decision, obviously then to do chemo, because I mean that in itself is a battle, because obviously I know ultimately chemo is there to help you get rid of the cancer, but that ravages it itself. What was that experience like, going through chemo?
It was really tough. One, because like I didn't really want it, so it was like a mental battle. But it was I was on 5 days on, 2 weeks off, 4 times. And like I'd managed to get like in between the chemos, like a couple of sessions training in, but I'd gone from training twice a day, 6 days a week, to not being able to train. Like I went down to 49 kilogram in weight. I was being sick all the time, and obviously it was hard to, you know, chemo kills everything. It doesn't make you feel good one bit, and it was hard for me to go from such an active lifestyle to feeling that bad all the time, and just being in the hospital for so long, and like missing everything I'd worked for, and like having your dream took away. But you just have to, like I said, bite down on that gum shield. And I remember I just kept setting myself goals, and every time, maybe some days I get down, and then one of my mates would text me, like even just calling me, "Hey Baldy, how are you?" Just having a little joke, and you know that made me feel better. And sometimes like people would say, "Oh, he's not going to fight again," and then that'd be a bit of motivation to kick me up the arse and be like, "No, I am going to fight again." And just have to just keep pushing through. And it's just those mental battles every day, but stuff that I'd gone through all my life that I had to just keep pushing through, keep finding something to work for. I try and get in the gym as often as I can as I could to coach, and that gave me some focus. I ended up getting a dog, which would give me some focus, which would try and make me get out for walks and stuff, so I could focus on him. And just going through that chemo, it's just a mental battle that you have to push through, I think.
And I've got to ask as well, once obviously you ultimately ended up winning that battle, what was that moment like when the doctor tells you that you've beaten the cancer? In that moment, how does that feel?
Well, after the first lot of chemo, I still had the mass in my stomach.
Right.
So, and I couldn't get a doctor who would operate on me, because where the mass was in my stomach is where the blood goes to and from the heart. And they were all saying it was too much of a dangerous operation. So I was waiting for a doctor in Birmingham who would do it, Dr. Patel. And during the time waiting for him, I remember it was around Christmas time, and they were telling me, you know, hospitals were busy at the time, and like they are, and trying to get an operation was going to be tough. And the cancer ended up coming back again and started spreading. So I had to go through another 2 weeks of chemotherapy. And after the second week, I remember they said to me that any more chemo and he's probably not going to make it. His body and lungs aren't going to survive the chemo. I think my lungs started working at like 34%. So I needed the operation. I ended up getting the operation date. So before I went into the operation, the surgeon had said, listen, we could cure you, or you could go into this. We just open you up, have a look at it and be like, no, he's done. So I've gone into the operation not knowing the outcome and what I was going to wake up with the situation being. So I've gone into the operation. I've come out the other end. They'd scheduled me in for an 18-hour operation, and it ended up taking 4 hours. So I weren't sure when I come back if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But they then explained that they said that everything had gone well. Whatever they said they had a mind map with all certain things that could go wrong. Ready, and they had teams prepared, like the lung specialist team, the spine specialist team, in case it had gone to my spine. And they said nothing had gone wrong. So I've come out the operation, and then during the recovery period, I've ended up catching pneumonia and having my lung collapse. So like I still know I'm in the fight, and I think I was in hospital for 2 to 3 weeks after it, and they'd in the hospital in Birmingham they told my parents to book a 6-week stay. But I was out the hospital, into the CF hospital after 2 weeks, on the running machine after 2-3 days. And then I remember they were like, listen, we want to send you home, but it would be stupid to. No one's ever recovered this quick. We thought you were going to be here for a good 3 months, and you're on the running machine. And I was like, listen, I'm going home. If you're saying I'm ready to go home, I'm going home. But even when I left the hospital, the journey for me wasn't over until I stepped back in the octagon and started fighting again. That was like the goal I'd set to end the cancer journey. So that walkout for me for that first fight back, that was the end of it. As soon as that bell rung and I started fighting that first minute back from the cancer journey, for me, that was the end of my journey. It wasn't over until that point. And I think that ended it for me.
So let's talk about that. So you'd had obviously fights scheduled against Darryl Grant. Yeah, I think it was twice. Was it twice or just the once?
Once it got cancelled and then it got rescheduled again.
And then so that fight against Darryl was, sorry, I'm just double checking the dates. That was in, what was the date? 12th. Was that July? No, sorry, that was December, wasn't it? December.
Yeah, December ended up being. I think it was meant to be in September first. So sort of just taking you back to that fight against Aaaron. So what was that like there? Obviously you've went through camp and you've leading up to the fight, but just what's it like when you're backstage here, you're warming up with the coach, getting ready to make it? What's the feeling like? Where's your mind at that point? To be honest, it was where it always is before a fight. It just felt like home again. Like I was ready to go. It was only the initial walkout that it felt different, and I think because it was the main event, so it was the last fight, and I think like I'd sold over 200 tickets, and like everyone in there was there, and I would like as I was walking down, and the announcer Brian Lacey had announced it was like my comeback from cancer, and then seeing everyone who'd been supporting me through that journey just in the crowd and so close, it was only then it really hit me. And like as I was walking there, I really felt emotional going into it, because then because I think I'd set that goal in my head, and every time I needed a bit of hope, it was, I'm going to do that, I'm going to step back in there. Seeing everyone there who'd supported me through it all, that was for me the best moment of my career. Like, even though I drew the fight, and hindsight, it was probably a bit too soon, because I was still weighing like 120 pounds. at the time. But that was still the most proud I've been of not just me, but my family as well, and everything we'd come through to get back in there, and to do it so quick within 9 months of a major operation, and having 2 years out, you know, in a cancer battle. You know, I do feel like it was a credit to everyone around me that helped support me and get me back in there. And that was probably the best moment of my career.
Yes, it's amazing, man. It really is. When you hear that, James, I'll get you jumping in. It's just, when we talk about fighters, I mean, that is the definition of it, isn't it?
It's like, it puts everything that you kind of normally associate with fighting into perspective. It's just not the same, really. It's, you see, you kind of touched on this a wee bit, did, when people say that, even going back to when you're a wee guy and you shouldn't be playing sports and stuff with the cystic fibrosis and stuff. How good does it feel just proving people wrong and people saying, like, you'll never fight again, you'll never train again, and I take it this just drives you on. You're just like, I'll fucking show you. It's like, it's special, that, man.
Yeah, that's for me motivation. It was like the same growing up. If people would tell me you can't, that was the way I was going to do it. I remember I had one fight, and one of the opposite coaches was like, we're just going to tire him out in the first round, and his lungs won't be ready for the second and the third round. And I remember like finishing the third round and saying, who's tired now? Because I was fresh and I'm fine. And just stuff like that would just spur me on. Like every day through training camp, through that fight, I was like, I'll show him I can go 3 rounds. Just going to tire me out of the first round. And like growing up, you know, I think I was like, my favourite films like Rocky, The Underdog, Mighty Ducks, Karate Kid, stuff like that. And that's why I want to give that people hope. And I think that's why I like spend so much time and like with people, parents with CF or kids with CF, or now like I've worked with a few people who've got cancer, just speaking to them and just giving them that hope as well. Because so much of life and is mindset, and so much of fighting is mindset, and they both come hand in hand together, and just being able to put them together, and everything you do having that right mindset to it. Like one of the things I've been told throughout my life is, show me the fighter, I'll show you the person. You know, show me the footballer, I'll show you the person. Show me the dad, I'll show you the person. Show me the person, I'll show you the fighter. They interlink together. And I think people motivate me by telling me you can't, or telling me I won't fight again, or, you know, even when people are saying, oh, your best fighter's world, he might not make it out of this. I'm like, fuck you, I'm going to show you I'm going to make it out of it. But I'm definitely going to fight as hard as I can.
Yeah, I think especially it's very poignant in the current circumstances, because people need, more than ever, I think now, a bit of inspiration and a bit of hope. It's certainly something that we could do more of.
Yeah, every day's like, even with COVID now, is a mental battle. You think your life's going to go back to normal, or it's going back down, or, you know, everything is just trying to break you, but you just got to keep pushing through it.
Yeah, amazing. And then obviously after the fight with Darryl, you managed to get back in there. And I want to know about, so that was in February out of Professional Dubai. You fought with Mohammed Gamal. Just having that extra couple of months as well. So going for the Grant fight, which was in December, then you get your next fight in February. Did you feel stronger just having another couple of months to get yourself back?
Definitely. In hindsight, the one in December was probably too soon. You know, like I weighed in at 120 pounds, and I woke up, had breakfast, like put my dog in the car, drove to the weigh-in because I hadn't done a cut or anything, on a full stomach. But like I said, me getting back in there was my end to the journey. So I almost like maybe rushed it a little bit, and I'd like, as soon as I'd started sparring, I was like, right, let's get a fight. And then like I'd been like straight into fight camp after like 3 or 4 weeks of easing myself back in on the mats. Obviously, I've been in the gym doing my strength and conditioning and my rehab a lot longer, but and then obviously February come round, I think my weight was back. I still didn't have to do a cut, but I was around 125 pounds. I felt a lot better. Training was going a lot better. My weight was constantly going up. The weights I was lifting was going up. My performance in the gym was going up, and just felt a lot more ready by the time that had come round.
Yeah, and obviously, how was it fighting out there and going out to fight on that show?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was my 30th as well. It was on that day, and I've been putting that off for ages because no one wants to turn 30, do they? And people were like, "Oh, you're having a party?" I was like, "No, what are we gonna do for your 30th? Nothing." And I remember Steve Nightingale rung me up. "Oh, there's a fight for you." I was like, "When?" He was like, "February 7th." I was like, "Oh, 2 weeks, awesome, let's go. That's my 30th sorted." So we went on 2 weeks. This is the best way to spend your 30th. I couldn't have thought of anything better to do than go to Dubai and have a scrap, really.
Well, it's not just that. You go to Dubai, you have a scrap and you win. I mean, surely that's the best birthday you can have as a fighter.
Yeah, so that was good. Like I said, those experiences are what make it, especially after everything that I've had to go through, and just having them opportunities come up and to get to travel the world doing what you love is awesome.
Yeah, no, obviously the current situation's put pay to most things at the moment. So what have you been doing with yourself since that fight in terms of keeping yourself active and mentally sharp during the situation we're in at the moment?
Still training. Maybe even a bit more, because obviously you can't be in the gym coaching or doing as many one-to-ones, but still training every day, staying active, staying ready, working on everything, just getting better, and helping people with like nutrition as well and stuff. But other than coaching as often, still training as much as I was, and just waiting for things to come back round and get an opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. And is it just a case of that, just waiting for the opportunities to come and grabbing them with both hands at this point? Yeah,
100%. Like I said, I don't have to cut weight or anything. As long as I haven't got any niggles or anything, just waiting for something to come up. I did sign with a show, but that fell through. I think they got their funding pulled. So yeah, just staying active and staying ready, and waiting for something to come round.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And James, I'd love to bring you in if you've got anything else you want to add in there.
I'll usually just kind of wrap up with some general shit. What have you still got left to achieve in the sport now that it sounds weird talking about it after all the stuff that you've just spoke about, but you must still have goals in the sport. You've got an excellent record and stuff. So once we're allowed to compete regular and stuff, what would you like to go on to do, like the UFC or what's your goals?
100%. I want to get to the UFC. I think I've gone through times where I think, the UFC isn't everything. Just want to fight and experience, and I do want to fight. I want to compete all over the world. But I think if you're not aiming for the UFC, I think that's something that every fighter really wishes to aim for, that top organisation. And if I can finish my career in the UFC and travel the world, and I also think I'll reach more people by getting there and be able to spread that positive story by getting there. I think if someone like me can get there and show people that no matter that you're born with cystic fibrosis or condition, or you go through something, if you can reach that top and push that story, I think that'll do a lot, not just for me, but for everyone else. And I think that's my goal in the sport as an athlete, as a competitor.
That's what I was thinking there. Like, you want to be in a stage where you can tell your story, man, because it's inspiring and it's massively important. Like you talked about how you're talking to people with cancer and with cystic fibrosis and stuff, but like the more people that can listen to you, the better, because it's fucking not a normal story. And then when you combine it with the sport that you're in, and also even just the way you fight. Like the first time I seen you fight live was the Conor Hignett fight at ACB. And it was a proper fight, man. It was like two fast, athletic guys, technical, and then after that, obviously, I was kind of keeping up with what you were going through on social media and stuff, and I was like, I've got this image of this fight in my head, this 100 mile an hour, two guys like fighting the way they should at that level, and then hearing about you being sick and just kind of like, it's such a fucking powerful kind of thing that people can see what you've went through and that you're still pushing forward, and it's so positive. And I think somebody like the UFC should be snapping that up, and they should be pushing your story to everybody to see, I think, because they're so quick to push some absolute dog shit stories. Yeah, like guys with no stories to tell, and it's important that they can show stuff like what you've been through, and kind of the power that martial arts can kind of help people with as well. Because I would imagine it's definitely helped you with what you went through in life, the same way it has with everybody who I know that's involved in martial arts. Obviously, not everybody's went through the extreme stuff that you went through, but it's such an important fucking story to get out there, I think.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that's why I gravitate towards martial arts. Like when I was like, obviously I played football for Wales as a kid and stuff, but when I started it, just how real the sport is and like how it translates to life. And I think that's what made me gravitate towards it more. And like even when I fight, like I said, I don't like taking a step back, and because that's how I live as well. And like I said earlier, show me the fighter, I'll show you the person. Show me the person, I'll show you the fighter. And I think, I would love to get to the UFC and share that positive story, and like that's obviously the pinnacle of the sport, and just that's why I just love competing as well and doing that. So but thank you.
No, man, we appreciate it, man. It's been great having you on. It is inspiring hearing your story, and we're glad if we could get you on and put this episode out there. I think people will really appreciate it. So we won't keep you much longer, Aaron. Again, just from me and the guys at the show, thank you very much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me.
No,
thanks, man.
Well, listen, mate, we'll let you go on that.
Back to the Liverpool game.
Back to the Liverpool game.
How are we getting on?
I don't know, mate. I've not really wanted to look away and check for you, but I'm sure you're doing brilliant. Maybe. But listen, thanks very much, Aaron. I'll speak to you in a bit, James. Take it easy, man.
Yeah. Just say one thing. Are you going to lose me money this weekend, James, by putting your picks up and me going with you losing again, or?
Oh, fuck. Stay away from the picks, man. Okay. I'm in hiding because of those picks. Yeah. People after me.
I'm just about to put a... Sorry, on you go.
He always puts disclaimer, don't bet on these. I always bet on them.
Fuck.
Well, the best thing to do, I'm just about to put a new down payment on a new Lambo. I've just been going opposite of what James says. It's very profitable, mate.
I might try that tactic, yeah.
I give that a try. You'll be a part owner in Liverpool in the next 2 years. Right, cheers, lads.
Thanks, cheers.
Take it easy, man. Bye.